Good morning, this is DebraVWilson. It is Sunday, the 19th of August, 2018. The time is 800 hours and 37 minutes. That's GMT, and I am in Great Britain. I posted a little on Twitter, doing a stereotypical construct of my age. Anyway, I tweeted on Twitter that I was going to do a podcast about MI6, which is the UK's external spying agency, and the Shabak, which is Israel's internal spying agency. Some publicly observed utterances from both agencies, and just a wee bit of what I think about it. So I'll start with MI6, this secret intelligence service. I became aware of MI6 in the 80s, the tail end of the 80s, in a feminist organization that I was affiliated with. I'm trying to be discreet, so there are a lot of odds here. I apologize. And literally, I didn't know what the woman was talking about, and she said, she rolled her eyes. She was British. She rolled her eyes at me, and she was trying to explain to me who these people were, and she rolled her eyes and she said, 007. And I said, oh, with a smile, and then she snapped at me and said, not literally, but she said, that's who they are. And I traveled in an extremely political circle in the UK, almost from I was day one that I started traveling to the UK. It was always an engagement with political / and then quite shortly after that, the security models, various components of security models, whether it was the Metropolitan Police and then Special Branch, and then I bumped into MI5. So I may have bumped into MI6. Not sure about that, but I know about the Metropolitan Police. I know I bumped into Special Branch, old white men of Heathrow. I saw them at the airport all the time. And then I bumped into MI5. So anyway, back to the point of this podcast. So we started talking about Britain's security models, the way in which the state constructed it was best to keep the nation safe. And because I was in a left-leaning organization that was feminist, and its basis immediately, although people didn't use those words then, we talked about the way in which the state constructed security and who can keep them safe. People from Eton, who went to Eton and then on to Cambridge and Oxford, and then she told me about the whole tapping on the shoulder. And for years, that model stayed with me, and for years, as I started engaging in more and more nuanced feminism that eventually included actually critiquing and the analysis of the state's national security model, looking at the ways in which Special Branch, MI5, and then externally MI6 deemed it is appropriate to keep the state safe. I started looking at some of the women that I worked with, British nationals. All of these women I'm talking about, British nationals. And I looked at the networks they had, and I looked at their passion and concern about their government and their country and their fellow citizens. I looked at young British women, and some not young, who went above and beyond, volunteered on a volunteer basis to keep their country safe. And it's sometimes a considerable financial cost, personal safety costs, health. These women stood on the front line as civilians to look at the ways in which Britain was keeping the country safe and if they thought it was working. And their assessment was based on their own personal understanding of how the state kept the country safe and engagement with other civil society actors and engagement with the general population. A lot of back and forth. And I always wondered, because again, I still had that narrative in my head about who MI5 was and who MI6, again, focus here is MI6, the tap on the shoulder, Cambridge, Oxford, white males, heterosexual, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, every once in a while we'll recruit a woman, you know, shut the folks up. And that the fact that these are secret, there's a secret agency that regressive narratives can stay embedded longer because, I mean, you can't have the general public coming in and say, well, let's talk to your different ethnic and identity, the identities and ethnicities that you recruit. That's not going to happen. So I would look at these women who I think it's fair to say that the women that I worked the closest with were and still are hard left. But I didn't. What eluded me was that I didn't understand how their concern about the nation was any different than an MI6 officer. I saw women, and I'm talking about because in the UK, like many places, the UK is messy. So sometimes you're bumping into people you think are civilians, and they're not. So I'm talking about civilians. I'm talking about organically emerging civilians who are activists. And I saw women giving above and beyond. They didn't want recognition. They didn't get recognition. So that was a good thing they didn't want it. They were constructed as big mouth feminists and other things. Big mouth, ugly women. You can't get a man. Go get a man and be a proper woman, quote unquote. And a great personal cost. They were this concern and love of country. And I wondered over the years, and then in addition to that, I saw these women with networks, some half my age. Now, I had a pretty good network, and I was based in Chicago at the time. But these women that were based in the UK, and their activism was UK-based, I saw their networks that spawned and went well beyond the geopolitical boundary that is the United Kingdom. And I wondered, would women like this ever be considered? Would they ever, for MI6, would they ever get the tap on the shoulder? How would I know? I mean, at that time, there was no way to assess how the state looked at them, only by the fact that many of the women that I'd worked with had gotten a tap on the shoulder by MI5, but not to work for them, to ask them what they were doing and why are you doing it, and they were viewed with great suspicion. So from that I extrapolated that perhaps MI6, which is external, might view them the same way, but I didn't understand why. Because one of the careers I had in America was I recruited people, HR. I worked in human resource. And so I thought to myself, what are the things that you look for in a spy? Well, British contact. So a British national. You want somebody patriotic. You want somebody smart. MI6, the person that needs to go out and above self and out and engagement. And I looked at these women doing all sorts of networking with people around the frickin' globe. And they were smart, they were cautious, they were methodical. And I kept thinking, they were very critical of aspects of Britain, including MI5 and MI6 and the specials. So would that preclude them from consideration? They challenged the state in how they constructed threat and security, those binaries, which I think is brilliant. I mean, that keeps you safer. Who goes to their doctor who with a brain goes to the doctor and wants the doctor to say, perfect. You actually want some critique and analysis of what you can do better to stay healthy and sounder, right? So I actually thought this was good and healthy and sound for the nation. So I remember saying to someone, it was actually MI5 I wanted to send it to, and I sent it to Home Office. I wrote a series of papers and an article, or a letter or two, email when I mean letter, about how the state constructs who is worthy of keeping them safe based on these women. based on the women that I had met. I was very careful. I told people in advance I was going to do it. I didn't need names. Some of the women didn't care because MI5 had already given them the metaphorical tap on the shoulder, but again, not to recruit them, to ask, what the hell are you doing, woman? Okay, pretty much that. And so that was my question. So now we're going to fast forward, because that was several years ago. I'm going to fast forward to, I saw this advert from MI6 in which Alex Younger, Sir Alex Younger, I hope I have that right, Alex Younger is seeking to be more, I won't say expansive, I will say more more aware of what is intelligence and what are the skills needed, and understanding that there are certain skill sets that people can attain in a multiple set of ways. That not all of it is that people are upper class and they got to live abroad with their family. Some of those skills can be attained in London, England. And the YouTube video I saw from RT, the network RT, the young woman is working in a florist shop and she's dealing with all these different personalities. Well, in London, England, there are people from all over the world, and you have an opportunity to engage with people from all over the world. When I interviewed people as an HR person, I always liked when people gave me a functional resume as opposed to a chronological. And if I got a chronological resume, I would ask for functional. When I interviewed them, I'd want to go through functional. What did you learn functionally? What skill sets were attained or sharpened at this particular job? Because I think that tells you more about the person, and also the way in which they view those skill sets that they have attained. So I'm interested, I take great interest, like how am I going to know? But the fact that the MI6 has said they need to understand that that being a good, faithful servant to the country via MI6 can mean many different things and can come through many different paths. Now, I'm well aware that many people, particularly in the circles which I travel, are critical of the model in general of MI6, and that's the focus here. And so, from their perspective, the recruitment of marginalized communities, persons might be a way to sharpen the skill sets of a model they are already found problematic. I understand that and I hear that. And it also could be a marketing ploy. I've spent more time around spies than probably the average civilian, so that's possible as well. Nevertheless, again, how am I going to know? I take with great interest Alex Younger's vocalizing publicly his desire and his understanding that patriotism and intellectual girth and the ability to maneuver through multiple cultures and identities and spaces and places isn't unique to a gender or an ethnic identity or an orientation or the shape, form, or ability of the body, right, or age. So I'm very pleased to see that. I look forward to whatever bits and pieces that MI6 can continue to share with their understanding that no one group, no one identity has their market on being patriotic or smart or brilliant or able-bodied in terms of being able to protect and serve their nation. There is no one identity. And it behooves a person like Alex Younger, in the very important role he has, to understand that who is fit to serve the country is beyond what he may conceptualize at the moment. But his role is to understand who is fit to serve the country for the sake of the country, not for the sake of his comfort zone. So, okay, so now on to the Shabak, which I'm going to post links to all of this. So the Shabak is the internal spying agency in Israel, and that would be the equivalent of MI5 here in Britain. The Shabak is another agency, spying agency I bumped into. recently, and again, I'll post all these things. I'm reading with great interest because I'm planning on going back to Israel to do some work. That the spying agency that is the Shabak or Shin Bet have been detaining more left-leaning activists at the airport. In addition, that there's certainly more vocalized utterances in the public space of left-leaning activists, people that support the BDS movement, and some of these people are Jewish people, and not Israeli citizens, but Jewish, with Jewish identities, who've been detained or forbidden from coming to the country for a period of time, detained in question, or blocked from entering the country for a period of time. Okay, so here's the thing. How would I know? But Israel has a very, the brand about the security models. First of all, I think most people, I had never heard of the Shabak until I bumped into them, and then someone had to tell me who they were, because I didn't know. I thought it was the Mossad I bumped into, but it was the Shabak. But I think in general, when you think of Israeli intelligence, most people construct them both friend, quote unquote, and foe. I'm using a binary, and I hate those rigid binaries. View them as having a quite proficient and brutal security model. So, okay, I don't know of anybody that constructs the Israeli intelligence models, the national security models. That, boy, those are some laid-back folks. So it's interesting for me to watch, and I think many people, myself included, view the model with a great deal of fear. I will never be able to explain traveling to Israel on my own in 2017 and being petrified going there, but that's another podcast. So I think this amping up of the Shabak's presence to people who knew of them and people that didn't know of them, I think it's interesting to watch the response globally, because I think most people, again, I don't know anybody, again, whether they love them, loathe them, or somewhere in the Midlands, that think of the Israeli security model, any aspect of it is, well, aren't those some friendly piece of cake kind of people? They just love them, not love them. I don't know what that expression means, piece of cake, but whatever. So it's amping up the model. I think it's giving this more visible positioning of the Shabak at airports. I mean, they've always been there, but it's certainly more visible, and it remains to be seen what that does for the country's brand, if that's a good thing. From a national security perspective, I always think of the state security model is prescribed medicine. So sometimes we all need prescribed medicine, but you don't want to underprescribe and you don't want to overprescribe. I have no idea what this new positioning, that's a better word, of the Shabak will do for the model. I know there's a lot of talk, and I think that my understanding is that it's increased the fear level of Israel, and maybe that's the desired effect. I don't know. So, and I'm trying to assess who's fearful. I know I'm more afraid, and which is weird for me because I've experienced. Somebody told me spies were like dogs. Sorry, and that a well-trained spy was like a well-trained dog. They know how to retract their teeth. So the teeth are always there. Sorry, my apologies, but I actually think that's a great analogy. And so I got to experience the Shabak with their teeth retracted. And so I don't know I know personally I'm concerned about traveling back to Israel. I'm still going to give it a try, but I don't know how that feels, how it's being experienced collectively by those of us who want to travel to Israel and who want to travel to Israel and are not there to seek to harm the country, right? But it's very interesting well, that's not the right word, so I'll put interesting quotes, from an academic perspective, to see the Shabak become ever more visible and to become the topic of conversation for people who probably have never heard of them before, and like me thought the Israeli intelligence all came under the umbrella of the IDF and the Mossad. So that's something that I'm looking at with a great deal of curiosity, and also personally as I'm planning my next trip to Israel. So as ever, these are my podcasts. Are always a bit of me rambling, but I hope that I was coherent enough to that you could follow and follow along and get the gist of what I was trying to say. Okay, so this is DebraVWilson. I'm in Great Britain, and this is Sunday, and the 19th of August, 2018. Thank you so much.